Okay, so mild spoilers for Terrifier 1, Terrifier 2, Smile, and Smile 2. I'm not going to give plot details, but just kind of. I'm going to try to avoid giving plot details, but if you don't know anything about these movies, I'm going to just kind of tell you the basic themes of them. Here is my premise. Here's my thesis. These are two of the cruelest movies, uh, even amongst horror movies, that you'll watch. And it's not because of what's happening to the characters, but it's the underlining theme of what's happening in these stories. They're very different, by the way. Um, the thing that the thing that they really have in common is that they're both fairly gory movies. Terrifier more so than Smile. Terrifier is NC-17. That's kind of new to me because I grew up in a city where the only theater chain we had in town did not show unrated or NC-17 movies, so that's new. So I saw Smile 2 in the theater yesterday. I saw Smile 1 in the movie theater when it came out. I saw Terrifier when it was streaming. Didn't see it in the theater. And I decided I'm probably going to go see Terrifier 3. I was hesitant to watch it because when Terrifier 2 came out, I was like, I'm not going to watch this. Because if you haven't seen these movies, it's NC-17. It's not NC-17. Terrifier is not NC-17 because of sex or nudity. That's how gory this movie is, right? I'll say one thing about it is that it's extremely gory, but because of the budget of the movie, the gore is very cheap looking. But it's still pretty gory. Okay, so these are they're why are they so cruel? And I'll say why, and they kind of have something in common. So here's the plot of Terrifier. It is a killer clown movie. You're following this clown, Art the Clown, and as he just goes around and just brutalizes people. And you eventually find out that Art is kind of a supernatural being. He can be hurt, but basically he instantly heals from his wounds. He kind of shakes them off. But the thing is, he is just absolutely cruel in what he does. It's like if you were to get a manifestation, a personification of cruelty, it would be Art the Clown. I will just give you an example of something he does in one of the movies, which it's kind of odd because it's one of those things where it's so calculated in the cruelty of it. So he attacks this person. He does all these things. So I'm not going to be details with it, but let's just say that she's covered with lacerations. So he runs out of the room. He's attacked her in her home. He runs out of the room, and you're kind of like, she's struggling. She can barely move. And he comes back with a box of salt and what I think is a bottle of possibly alcohol or bleach, and he pours it over her wounds. This is Art the Clown. So it's just cruelty for the sake of cruelty. And the thing is that you can, if not just that type of concentrated cruelty, you know that cruelty exists like that in the world. So when I was hesitant to watch the second movie after watching the first one, but I've kind of like I guess I kind of interpret it as like, look, it's almost like the creator the writer / director of these movies didn't create this cruelty. It's almost like it's a reflection of what we see in the world. I don't know if there's any type of deep whatever to it. By the way, I like the second one more than the first one, because the antagonist is I like the antagonist is better developed, and Art kind of gets his comeuppance a little bit. So what about Smile? So the premise of Smile. And by the way, if you see Smile 2, you have to really, if you haven't seen the first Smile movie, and you go in and watch Smile 2, you're not going to know what's going on because it picks up literally 6 days after the first one. So if you don't, you're going to be completely lost if you haven't seen the first one. But basically, there's this malevolent spirit, a demon. They never clearly defined it. But the way it works, it attaches itself to people. And the way it does it is, it essentially haunts a person over the course of a week, slowly controlling their thoughts, making them hallucinate, making them suffer. And then after a week, it completely possesses them, and they to use the language of the internet, they unalive themselves. But they make sure to do it in front of someone. And once you see them, the person who sees them commit this act of unaliving, the demon will then attach itself to that person, and the chain continues. So with that course of the week, the hallucinations get worse. The person is slowly losing their mind. That's the first thing of cruelty, is that you're slowly losing your mind, and nobody else can see what's happening, right? So within these hallucinations, you may hallucinate that you're hurting yourself. It may actually cause you to hurt yourself. You may hallucinate that you're hurting other people, that other people are that you're hurting other people, that other people are hurting themselves. None of this is happening, but you're slowly seeing. So think of it this way, right? The first thing it starts with is just the trauma of seeing another person in their own life. That's the first trauma. Then it attaches to people, and it feeds off of whatever trauma you have in your life. And it forms these hallucinations based on whatever trauma you have. So, I mean, just to give a scenario without really giving anything of the movie, if you were abused as a child or as an adult, you may imagine your abuser coming to see you. I would imagine if you were a war veteran, you may imagine seeing people sustain the same injuries that you may have seen them when you were off in combat, that sort of thing, right? But none of this is real. And then the trend, as it's shown in the movies, is towards the end, it makes you believe that there's a glimmer of hope, that you may have been able to escape whatever fate that's coming, that there may be a reprise from the suffering you've had for the past week. And then right at the very end, it yanks it from you. And that's kind of, I'm not going to lie, when I look at these movies in that framework, it's kind of brilliant. It's kind of we're seeing at the tail end of what we've talked, the elevated horror that we were getting, in the 2010s up until now. And the crescendo, I'm saying this is the crescendo, it's kind of great. Terrifier schlocky. But going back to Terrifier, I'll probably go see Terrifier 3 in the theater. It's over the top. You know, if you like horror and you haven't seen these movies, watch them. I'm not really the biggest fan of just the gore for the sake of gore, oddly enough. And I wasn't a big fan of for example, the French, what was it called? The French extreme. People are watching this video. I'm sure I've got horror fans, and they're just screaming what it was called. But basically, this movement that came about in the 2000s, I think it may have been the mid 2000s, where you have this extreme French and kind of European horror. But I think Terrifier, for whatever reason, has maybe kind of won me over to that. Terrifier doesn't fall in the same category. The French extremist horror was actually pretty well written, but it was very gory and shocking. But, you know, if you're a fan of horror, I would definitely say watch both of these movies. Really, Smile Smile is just as psychologically terrifying as it is visually terrifying. That's kind of my review of those movies.